Alright, here we go, part 2 of my Lucid Dreaming Vournal, which is video journal. Alright, so today I had a dream last night. Actually, I just shot part 1 last night, and I kind of tried to have a lucid dream last night. I didn't take any extra steps than I normally would, but I had some breakthroughs last night, so I wanted to record. Basically, what happened was I woke up from a dream. The dream was that I was kind of like in this shootout with these guys. I don't know who they were or why they were shooting at me or whatever, but I know that the majority of the people on my team ended up being killed by these guys, and I'm running around shooting at them. And man, it was intense. You know, every corner I turned around, there was pretty much at least one of them there waiting for me. It's kind of like reminded me of Call of Duty, but it was a lot more real life, you know, real people, real outfits and stuff like that. So in real neighborhoods, it wasn't like Call of Duty where we're in the army, but it reminded me of going to battle in Call of Duty, where there's someone around every corner, everywhere you look there's somebody shooting at you and things like that. It was really intense, and the majority of my teammates, like I said, were killed, and this one guy saw me. I guess he must have saw them shooting at me, and he decided, just like this random citizen, decided to jump in and help me, which was cool, you know. So me and him were kind of shooting it out with them, but it was 2 versus a team, you know. And I don't mean like a team of 6. It seemed like, you know, this was like one of those militia teams that the government hires, one of those secret government agencies or whatever. So I mean, it was a lot of them. And I remember being in Philly at one point in time, shooting at, like, I was going down one street, a familiar street where I used to live at, and going down this street, and I see 2 guys approaching me, and they're shooting at me or whatever. So it's, you know, it's one of those split decisions where I didn't see them at first, and they kind of had to drop on me. I had to run for cover, and I had 2 pistols, and one pistol shot like a shotgun. And when I shot that pistol, it didn't have a lot of range, so it's kind of like playing the game and not knowing your buttons yet, and I keep using the wrong gun. I'm trying to use the pistol that has range, and I kept using the shotgun pistol. And every time I used that pistol, this yellow blast of like a speech bubble would come out saying bang bang, you know, with the red writing, and it was like on the old school Batman. So I'm like, man, what? Every time I shot that, I'm like, man, what good is this? What good is this? So I'm getting real frustrated about that. But that should have let me know that it was a lucid dream, seeing those speech bubble things, but they didn't. But that's why it's good to do dream recall, so that you can start to notice the strange things in your dreams, and that way they can wake you up. But so that dream ended up ending. I'm not exactly sure how it ended, but I woke up, and then, you know, I just found myself awake in bed in the middle of the night, and I sat there, and I started to, I think, maybe go back to sleep, and then I thought, wait a minute, I'm awake naturally, so I must have just been dreaming. So let me think back, and then I started to recall my dream. So that's how I practiced that. Then I ended up getting up, going to use the bathroom, and writing down my dream, and just trying to meditate and think on lucid dreaming for a while before I went back to sleep. So I did end up going back to sleep. Right before I woke up, I was having a dream that, well, I had like 3 dreams kind of back to back to back, where I was semi-conscious and not, you know, also sleeping. Well, the first dream was my girlfriend was getting ready to, she may have not had on all her clothes or something like that, if she was getting ready to be seen, and I was trying to warn her. So I actually sat up in bed about to warn her, because in the dream she was walking past me, so I was about to like take a step forward with my finger out like wait, and I woke up. I actually sat up and did that, and when I opened my eyes, I realized that it was just a dream. So I went back to sleep like almost immediately by closing my eyes. So now we're at a new dream where there's these people getting on this yellow bus that's getting ready to go somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but it's this yellow bus, and all out of nowhere, if anybody plays Call of Duty Black Ops 2, this dragon fire comes out of nowhere. And you know, I'm good at getting those things down with MP grenades or shooting them down. It's like one of my favorite things. You know, killing people's dreams. They think they about to get all these kills with the dragon fire, and then, you know, nothing. So or dragonfly, whatever it's called, but it was coming, and I don't know exactly what I did to it, but I disabled it, so now it's crashing, and I'm following it. It's in the distance, but I'm following it like this, you know, like you can do to the moon, pretend like it's between your fingers. So I'm following it like this all the way to the ground. And as it gets in front of me, but in the distance, as it gets in front of me, it takes the shape of what's in between my fingers, and it molds to that, and then it hits the ground. Now, as I'm doing this with my fingers following it the entire time, it's literally like I'm doing this in real life outside of my dream, and I'm following my hands, and it's almost like I'm closing my eyes, opening my eyes, closing my eyes, opening my eyes, closing them, opening them. As far as it's like it's as if somebody was trying to say, you're doing this in a dream. This isn't real. And I'm showing you the comparison and the contrast. And that well, at that time, it didn't wake me up at all. So the Dragonfire crashes and we get on the bus. Now, when we get on the bus, everything goes black. Not necessarily that everything went black in the dream or the dream ended, but it was kind of similar to me kind of regaining consciousness. So I'm not awake, but I'm in that stage of darkness right before sleep. So when I got on the bus, it was kind of like it brought me to that. So I really feel like this was like somebody trying to, maybe my dream consciousness trying to wake me up. Because during that blackness, I had time to reflect on what I just saw. And I realized that basically I was in a dream. And I was like, oh man, I figured out I was a dream. While I'm in this darkness, I'm like, I figured out that I was in a dream, because I saw my hands in reality and I saw it in a dream. Oh man, I wish I'd have thought about that then. Alright, so let me, and it just came to me, well, let me do a reality check now. And as soon as I said, let me do a reality check, I'm in this Jeep. It's still the bus. I'm arriving where the bus was taking us, but now the bus has become a Jeep, and there's not a lot of people with me anymore. It's just me and I think a driver. So as soon as I said, let me do a reality check, the scene just opens up, and I look to my right, and there's this well, first thing I see is this big, gigantic, like stone block on the ground, and I follow it up, and there's this temple. And the first thing that comes to my mind is like, man, it looks like a Mayan temple, but it looks like what Solomon's temple would have looked like if it was in like the Amazon jungle. It wasn't broken down. It didn't look old. It looked pretty new. And the material that it was made out of, it looked like kind of like rock, but at the same time it looked like gold. It kind of reminds me of the metal you see when that big buildings are made of in Xbox 360 games. So that instantly let me know, like when I look at the brick and I can see what material it was made out of, I'm like, oh, this is a dream, and I started to get excited, like I'm lucid. But by the time I was able to realize that and turn and look at the building, I had pretty much taken over the dream, but not taken over the dream in a lucid way, more of an imagination way. Like I pretty much woke up, but I was able to maintain the imagery of the dream. But it wasn't like a lucid dream where I was asleep but conscious. This is like I was conscious but holding on to my dream. So it wasn't the same. But one thing that I was able to figure out is one of my dream patterns is being in shootouts. Unfortunately, it's like being in mass shootouts where it's like 20 versus 20, and I'm usually the last guy, and I find myself running like Jack Bauer or Jason Bourne, running through a city trying to elude this army that's following me. So that's going to be one of my now that I've become aware and start to look back on and reflect on my dreams, now I can be consciously aware that that's a dream pattern. So when I start to see that in my next dream, that'll help me to become conscious during the dream. So that's why it's good to write them down and recall them, because then you start to see the consistencies, the things that happen over and over and over again, so that the next time it happens, your conscious mind or your subconscious mind will actually alert your conscious mind that this is one of those things you want to look out for. The beauty of this is our bodies are built this way. It's called the reticular activating system. That's why it's good to create habits to bring up in your dreams. For example, the looking at your hands, and telling yourself, when I see my hands in my dream, I'm going to know that I'm dreaming. It's the exact same principle that happens with, say for example, your friend or your mom or somebody gets a new car. Now, it'll start to seem like everybody else start to buy that car too, because you'll start to see that car more often. But really what's happened is your mom's car has become one of those staples in your mind. It's become important. So now it stands out. That's our reticular activating system. That actually helps us to survive, and it helps us to find things that coincide with our goals. For example, if say your spouse needed a job, if you hear anybody talking about jobs, or if you walk past a store and see a now hiring sign, that helps you with that goal. But if no one needed a job, those things become unimportant to you. That's when things happen, like somebody says, man, I really need a job, and you're like, oh, I just saw a now hiring sign, but I don't know where I saw that. But if it was important to you, you would have remembered where it was at. Or you could start to say, man, I see mom's new car everywhere now. It's not necessarily that you see it everywhere now. You always saw it. It's just it wasn't important to you, so your subconscious mind filtered it out. So that's why it's important. When you start to do that dream recall, your subconscious mind and your reticular activating system will start to show these things like, oh, that's important, wake up. Oh, that's important, notice that. And that's how you start to become conscious in your dreams and all that kind of stuff. So another thing is, I find it hard to go back to sleep sometimes after I've gotten up, or just to fall to sleep on purpose when I'm trying to lucid dream, when I'm trying to be conscious, So I'm so focused that a lot of times what happens is I'll keep myself up. So a little trick that I found myself that helps me with that is to, when I close my eyes, this is what happens at night. And I'm going to talk about this more in other videos, not necessarily this playlist, but in other videos I'll talk about basically the pineal gland and all that kind of stuff and how that works, but in your spiritual body. But pretty much what happens at night is your senses leave your physical body and they retract into your spiritual body. That's why you're able to see, hear, smell, and all that kind of stuff in dreams. Your senses, or your attention, turns inward, and it gives those senses, because remember, we receive everything through electronic signals. We don't actually see, hear, smell, taste, feel, none of that stuff. It's electronic interpretations of outside stimulus. So we don't see light. Light hits our eyes and then it's translated as light to our brains as information, just like in a computer. So it's the same thing that happens at night when your body goes through sleep paralysis, which means it loses all of its feeling. That's why some people can wake up in the middle of the night and can't move, can't talk, but they're conscious and they're like freaked out by it. It's like being dead and being trapped inside your body. It's because of that reason. Your spirit and your body disconnect, so that the senses go back to your body. Go back to your spirit and not your body. Okay, so when the pineal gland, which is the gland of your dreams, it is your third eye inside of your head. What happens is it's activated by darkness. So when you close your eyes at night, you stop seeing with these. Eventually, you'll start to notice that as you do this more and more, you'll stop seeing with these two eyes, and you'll see that a different blackness appears. Or in my opinion, a different blackness appears, and it seems like a one blackness as opposed to the two blacknesses, or the two eyes that become one. It becomes like a one blackness that doesn't seem to be in this space anymore, but it seems to be like infinite. It's almost that point where you no longer have a body. It'll start to feel like you're just pure consciousness. You're just inside this mass amount of darkness. At that point in time, pictures or images should start popping up. So you have an option there. You can start, when you start to see these images, then that's kind of like the beginning of hallucination. That's the beginning of your dreams. That's the beginning of your consciousness awareness starting to create the dream reality for you, pretty much. So during this stage, you have an option where you can start to notice these images and try to go back to darkness. See the image, go back to darkness, and wait for a new one to come. That way you develop the habit of this. Or you can see the first image and just observe it. Start to let it come into focus for you and just go with the image, the picture. I notice when I do that, I find myself dreaming soon. And if during that period where it's called hypnagogic imagery, when that imagery starts to show, if I choose to make it important to become lucid in a couple minutes, then that's where I do it at. When I start to see that imagery, I say, oh, the process is starting. Soon I want to wake up and be lucid. I start to put that in my mind, almost as if I woke up, had to use the bathroom, and I start to fall back to sleep. Like, oh no, we can't fall back to sleep, or we'll pee on ourselves. Something like that. I make it important to wake back up, or I wake up early, see my alarm clock. Oh no, I gotta go to work soon. I can't fall back to sleep. I didn't hit snooze. And then all of my dreams become about the alarm clock because it's so important. I do the exact same thing. So when I start to see that hypnagogic, whatever it's called, imagery, when I start to hallucinate going into my dreams, sometimes you hear a sound. I've heard people talking, because that's what happens. You start to, what your imagination is seeing, or what your thoughts are, that's pretty much what the dream realm is, the realm of thought. When you get into that realm of thought, then any hallucination becomes real. So for example, when you first start your dream and you can kind of feel yourself laying in your bed, but you can hear the people in your dream talking, if you've ever woke up from people talking and it's like, oh, I was dreaming, but you didn't see anything necessarily, you didn't feel or anything, you just heard the beginning of the conversations of your dream, and then you wake up and become conscious again. During that stage, the part where that imagery is first forming is when you're, in my opinion, is when I'm able to leave the impression on myself the strongest. Okay, I'm going into this sleep. Oh, I see this picture forming. I'm in the woods. Oh, that's a tree right there. Let me look to my right and see what appears, because it's not what important of, is this a real dream? The imagery is yours. You create the dream, and then you literally step into it, and then it surrounds you, then it engulfs you. By that time is normally when we become unconscious. But what I'm trying to do is go into that part semi-consciously, know that I'm creating it, fall asleep into it, and then wake up a little bit later consciously. And normally what happens is I wake up and then wake up out of the dream, but it works. I just have to remain calm. So I'll just reiterate that one more time. When I get into that stage of the hypnagogic imagery